Good afternoon, and welcome to our last webinar of the fiscal year, The Art of Parenting Adult Children. I'm Gail Cormier, the Project Director of NASDAQ, the Family Center of Excellence. We will be learning about accepting the changes in your role when it comes to parenting your adult children, whether it's creating healthy boundaries instead of hovering, offering practical guidance instead of opinions, observing instead of intruding. There's a lot we can learn about the art of parenting our adult children. This presentation I am most interested in since I have 3 adult daughters and an innate desire to mother in times of upheaval in my child's life. So I know the feeling when one of my adult children have something that is not working right. Oh, don't I want to jump in and fix it? So hopefully I'm going to learn some techniques today. Before we start our jam-packed presentation today, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded. The recording, along with the PowerPoint presentation slides and any additional resources, will be uploaded on our events page after the presentation. And we will send these to you in a follow-up email. All attendees will be muted for the presentation portion of today's webinar. However, we will still look forward to hearing your questions, and we're happy to help you with any technical issues. Can we go to the next page, please? To ask a question or request technical assistance, please send a message in the chat box. We'll be watching the chat during the entire presentation. If time allows, we will unmute and you will have the opportunity to ask questions out loud. You can use the raise your hand button. That would be very helpful. When you leave this webinar, you will be redirected to complete a short feedback survey using the link provided. This survey will help us continuously improve our webinars, and it also fulfills our SAMHSA funding application to provide them with important data required by our contract. And if you read the disclaimer, you will see that we, the National Federation of Families, information is not necessarily represented by SAMHSA's views. It's our views, and SAMHSA does not endorse any product presented. When you leave this webinar, you'll be redirected to complete that short survey. At this point, I would like to thank SAMHSA for allowing us to share this information with you today. And again, thank you for joining us. We go to the next page, please. And of course, NASDAQ always uses family-driven language. We try to be trauma responsive, strengths-based, avoids blaming caregivers, inclusive. We use person first, respectful, non-judgmental, and of course, we're consistent with our actions. It is now my honor to turn this webinar over to Cassie Ferriello and Andy Goldstrom. Cassie, Andy, it's all yours.
It's actually Casey. So.
Oh, Casey, I am so
right.
sorry.
Do not worry. It's all good. It's easy. It's easy. My mom did that. I had nothing to do with how she spelled my name. So you're all good. Our brain automatically puts that extra S in there.
It does. I'm sorry.
Do not worry. So hello, everyone. I'm Casey Ferriello. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Other Parents Like Me, or as we like to call it, OPLM. We're an online peer support platform for families and caregivers who have children struggling with their mental health. And at OPLM, we have offer 18 peer support groups a week, speaker talks, and resources designed to support and empower parents. But really, my heart is that I created OPLM because of my own experience. I really connected with what you said there, Gail. Because of my own children's struggles, mine are 24, 22, and 20. So I'm just on the path of understanding how to navigate adult children differently. So I have one child who struggles with severe anxiety, another child who deals with substance use and ADHD. And I'd love to say that the third child is just perfect, but the third child has struggled with self-harm. And as a side note, as part of the LGBTQ community, I wanted to create a space where parents, no matter what challenges they face behind their walls, can come together, find commonality around self-care, self-regulation, boundaries, and communication. And our mission is to build a supportive community where parents can share their experiences and learn from each other. So we were very excited when we were asked to speak today. And I have my one of my peer parents, that's what we call our facilitators, here with us on the side, Andy. So I'll hand it over to Andy as we both start to talk about the art of parenting adult children.
Excellent. Well, thank you to the National Federation of Families, and especially Gail and Michelle, who have been very helpful to us. And you just got introduced to Casey. You can't go wrong with Casey and OPLM. She's a tremendous person in the community, and somebody who really cares, and somebody who offers a community that offers support. And I would know because I'm one of the peer parents that works with Casey. And so I'm no different than probably a lot of you on this call. And like Casey, I have an adult child who I have two children, two adults, one who came back after being on her own from COVID and then had trouble when she came back home trying to relaunch. So we had to figure out how to coach her into relaunching. We were successful at doing that. And some of the things we're going to talk about today are really some of the methodologies that we use. So we hope you can learn from that and maybe apply it to your journey. I have a younger daughter who ended up, who had depression and anxiety issues, and she went away to wilderness therapy and residential treatment. And so she's back, and she's doing better as well. But it's a parenting journey, and it's why I named the business that I have outside of being a peer parent is Parents Journey Coaching, where I coach individual parents who are struggling with managing their children at whatever age group they're in, to try and improve their experience. We call it parenting, not childing. So it's really how to coach the parents to be better versions of themselves, to make things work for themselves and their kids. And one of the reasons I was brought to this as well is because I'm a guy and I'm a dad. So one of the things about being a parent coach is just having that perspective and understanding what it's like to be a boy and a man and a dad. And I know that when you're dealing with adult children, it's hard because you've had a lot of time where you've tried to influence your kids, and they're getting to that stage where you really want them to be independent and happy, and some can and they find their own way, and some needed a little extra support from the parents no matter what age they are, and it's never too late. So we look forward to sharing with you today, and hopefully you find it useful. And you have my website's parentsjourneycoaching.net, Casey's is oplm.com. You have our email addresses if you want to reach out to us directly for more information or just have any questions at all, and we're excited to present to you today.
Thanks, Andy. You can go to the premise slide. So our premise today is what we're guiding our talk on. And many adult children struggle with living independently and finding happiness. And as parents, I can be one of those. We can inadvertently hinder their growth and independence. And today we hope for you to recognize how our actions and support, or lack thereof, impact our adult children's development. Go to the next slide. So the impact, challenging realities of adult children. Oh, I mean, let's just all take a breath here for a moment with me, because if you are anything like me, sometimes the challenge or what comes up around them can hit you from sideways of like, I didn't even know that was a thing I'd be having to deal with. So there's this hard part of this dependence versus independence. Our adult children are often navigating the tension between wanting their independence, striving for their independence, and also to be having this like, I still have this dependence on my parents, my caregivers, my guardians, my people who have cared for me my whole life. And then there's this other part of this fear of failure. So I'm coming at this from the child and the parent. These can both happen for both of us. Both parents and children can share that fear of failure. I mean, it can get us stuck and keep us stuck in dependent relationships. A shared feel of failure can keep both of us stuck in a cycle of dependence. Um, and there's the worrisome for me of, oh, I want to, what are the life skills my kids don't know? What do they know? And adult children do lack essential life skills. I'm sure there's been stories. I know there's been stories with my my youngest, the 20-year-old, about he was the only one who knew how to do the laundry in his dorm room. So and stuff like that, like just little things that we take for granted our kids kind of understand but maybe don't. And it can make independence very challenging because not having those life skills gets us kind of fearful, like, oh, if they can't do that, what else can't they do? I don't know if that makes sense, but as a parent, as we hear them call us and ask them, like, how do you clean a toilet? And you're like, what do you not know? Like, do you know the basics? So you can really, their independence and your independence from each other can be hard. And then there's those unrealistic expectations. Both parents and children, we both have unrealistic expectations about what life should look like, and that can lead to disappointment and frustration on both sides. And when there's a lack of life skills and unrealistic expectations, it really can struggle. We can struggle more for that independence from each other. And then this is, well, I told you I have a child with substance use, but also a child with self-harm. My youngest has social anxiety, and self-harm was kind of helping him through that. And my oldest, in her severe anxiety, has lots of coping mechanisms, OCD, et cetera. And so they will, all three of them, try to escape and avoid the stress and pressures of adult life. Let me tell you, at 55, I would like to do the same thing. And I have to remember that I was their age at one point. And I did try to escape. And, they try to escape in different ways. And then that's scary for us when they're doing something that's like, oh, but you can't do this adult thing if you're not staying focused. You're just hiding in your room and playing video games all day. Then there's enabling behaviors. Parents might engage in that. I don't love the term enabling. It gives a kind of a description. It's when you do something for your child that they can do themselves. So a child might try to escape their responsibilities, and parents may enable that behavior, by and reinforce the dependency. So it's got a couple layers here that can happen. Go ahead. So our learning objectives today are three things: balance, support, and autonomy, social justice factor, and acceptance factor. To learn how to balance both support and autonomy with their emerging adult, fostering a positive, healthy relationship where they can both thrive. For us, parents recognizing our own biases and opinions when it comes to their adult children's beliefs and choices, and trusting their adult child as they are expert in their own life. And this one can be really hard, especially because, every generation says the generation behind us is so different. And how do I accept how they are? And parents of adult children understanding the importance of their own personal growth is really key in this. All right, next page. I'm going to pass it over to Andy, and he's going to start talking about balancing off support and
Yeah,
autonomy.
so a good portion of the rest of our presentation is about these three factors and the things to learn from them to achieve your objectives. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is balancing support and autonomy. And it's, as it says, it's making sure that you provide the level of support, but also give your kids the ability to do what they're supposed to do on their own as they grow. And so a lot of parents in my parenting coaching, they when they approach me, they basically said, I don't know what my kid wants. I can't figure it out. I can't understand how to motivate them, and they could be, adult children who are 18 to 28 or more, or younger. But honestly, the bottom line, and if you understand this, and I didn't really understand it, is that what adult children seek are just two things: control and understanding. And the control part isn't necessarily being able to make having every decision go their way, being able to do everything that they want to do, being able to dictate to your parents or to friends or to everybody else. That's not what control is. Control is actually having choice and being able to make decisions without having others having to make them for them. And those decisions could be easy decisions or tough decisions with consequences. And with that sense of control, adult children take more ownership for their behaviors and responsibilities if they're given those choices rather than having somebody else make it for them. And then understanding, that was even a bigger one for me, is when my younger child, when she was still a teenager, I learned this. When she started going off the rails and not doing quite as well and wasn't being safe, we locked down on her. We restricted her, we admonished her, we penalized her, we punished her. What we didn't do is try to understand what was going through her head and why she was struggling so much. And frankly, when she came back from her her treatment, that was the first thing she said. She said, I wish, things might not have changed very much, but it would have been easier and made me feel a lot better had you given me an opportunity to kind of explain kind of where things were for me. And I didn't feel you really let me. All you wanted to do was restrict me so much. So if there's a way that you can actually engage to understand what your adult child is going through and learn how to connect with them so that they can share with you and feel comfortable and give them that control, you will have accomplished a lot. This is a really important graphic in that we want to be able to understand what our parenting style is for, the way we parent our adult children. Because there's wrong ways and there's right ways, believe it or not. There are a lot of different ways. And there are 4 styles: authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and uninvolved. And the difference between them, if you go down the left, the y-axis, or the left, the column on the left, there's demanding and not demanding. Demanding isn't being mean or being directive all the time. It's setting boundaries and being consistent. So it's knowing what the rules are in the house, knowing what's acceptable to the parents, knowing what the consequences are and being consistent with that. And a lot of parents get to a late start on that, but it's never too late to start to kind of set those boundaries in place. And then the attuned and unattuned across the top is really the understanding part. Do you really understand where your child is coming from and what's going on so that you can connect with them? So when you're authoritative, that's in the top left, that's actually the best parenting style, because what you do is you understand your kid, but yet you have boundaries that you can be consistent with. A lot of parents that I work with fall into the category of authoritarian, and that was me partially. I was unattuned, I didn't understand, yet I was demanding. So that's not the best place to be. Another place that's not so great to be is permissive, because you understand your kid, but you really want to be in the friend zone. So you're not really demanding of them at all, and they may walk all over you and not listen to you, and you can't connect with them or anything. And then the worst kind is uninvolved. So uninvolved parents are neither attuned nor demanding, which is the worst part. And so most of the parents that I work with are either permissive or authoritarian. And the idea is studies have shown that the authoritative parenting style is the best parenting style. And you don't need two authoritative parents in the household. What you need is at least one. And if it's a single parent, it could be that one parent. And so when I do the parent coaching, I try and get at least one of the parents to move well in that direction, and the other parent to at least be aligned in terms of the way that they are able to communicate with their kids collectively. And so it's important to kind of understand where you fit in that, and whether how that parenting style that you exhibit impacts your kid. So we actually are ready to do our first little quiz relating to where you may fit in this spectrum.
And there's no judgment, no, everybody try to be as honest and as free with what comes up for you, and no judgment of what it is that you feel you are. Go ahead.
And can you guys see the QR code you could use with your scanning your camera? See, some people are responding, so.
Great.
Yep.
I can
Yeah,
see it, it's working.
Yeah. We don't want you to put it in the chat. We'd like you to go on that QR code, or you can go under menti.com and type in that code if you're having trouble with the QR code. But we'll give you a few minutes or a minute.
You can go to menti.com and plug in 12 50 98 60. It's in the chat.
So if you're just joining us right now, you just scan the QR code, and we're just seeing where you lie in your parenting style.
A lot of questions here are about what's the difference between authoritative and authoritarian. I'm assuming you're going to get to that, correct?
Well, we described it initially, and it was authoritative are the ones that are demanding and attuned. That's the best kind. Authoritarian are the ones who are demanding but unattuned.
Ah. Thank you.
So
there's only
authoritative is
one
the
question.
best, authoritarian, not quite as good.
Some really good comments in the chat while you guys are doing this. Challenging when you see
Lots
them
of
taking.
questions.
Okay. Well, we have a Q&A at the end.
Yeah, we'll give you time at the end. Don't worry.
I think it's leveling off, Casey.
I do too. Look at that. So we have that. It's interesting. What I would say is that I'm not surprised at all that everybody here is feels they fit into the three categories: authoritative, authoritarian, or permissive, and that we're not seeing uninvolved. And that's not surprising to me, since you're all here. Not surprising to me at all. And I would say that the fact that there's a higher level here of authoritative also, being able to recognize that is probably work that you guys have been doing. And just because you fall in the other two, permissive and authoritarian, is not something to judge yourself on. Just understand and notice, and things that you can improve on. So always a win in that way.
I'm
All right, thank you
impressed that
guys.
I'm impressed that a majority are authoritative, and if that's the case, that's great. There's always more to learn and do, for sure, but that's a great sign. And if you're permissive or authoritarian, that doesn't mean anything's bad. It means you're doing your best, and there's just growth opportunities ahead for you. And hopefully some of that would be, you can learn today.
All right.
Should we go back to the presentation now? Okay.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to go back into the playing. Okay, here we go. All right, so thanks for taking that quiz. We have another one too. You can see where you rank compared to others, and if a lot of you are the same, or if you have some work to do, and that's okay. The things that you can do to empower your children, along the lines of the control and the understanding and knowing what kind of parenting style you have, are actually giving some control and understanding to your kids. So what does that mean? Well, it means that your children have choices. They have a choice to stay in their room and play video games, or actually go out and knock on doors and try and find a job. They have choices of participating financially in your household or not. They have choices of, if they live on their own now, of doing certain things that they need to make. And by giving them more choices and having choices, they have more control. Allow them to make those choices. And sometimes you can help them by limiting the choices and tell them, you can do this now or do this by X, but you get to make the choice, as opposed to leaving it open-ended. And then they have to experience the benefits of the consequences of that. That's how they learn. That's how they learn what to do and what not to do. That's how they learn to fail and to bounce back. That's how they learn to build on success. And then if you set and maintain boundaries in terms of what's acceptable and not acceptable, again, in terms of interacting with you as parents and being part of your family, and you're consistent with that, you're still giving them control, because studies have shown that even though it's counterintuitive, if you actually set boundaries, kids feel safer because they know their swim lane and they know where to go or not go. So giving control is not giving up the farm or telling or allowing it to be just a free-for-all. It's actually giving,
I'm fine. How are you?
allowing your kids to act and have control, age appropriate. And then the understanding is being present. It's not being on your phone or not being distracted by something else when you're with your child. It's offering to be an ear or an advice giver. And what I mean by that is, when you talk to your child may not want to engage at the moment. They may be processing something, or tired, or hungry, or who knows. And often they want to feel safe. And when they feel safe, they feel more understood. And what that means is just asking them, when there's a question or something comes up, do you want me to just listen, or do you want me to actually help you? Do you want my input in terms of what you can do to solve the problem? And they may say, I just want you to listen. I think I have it figured out, and which is the best answer you could get, which is great. Or they may say, you know what? I've really tried to figure it out in these 3 different ways, and I can't. I really can prefer your help. But that shows understanding. Most parents are problem solvers. We're more experienced. We've experienced more life. We have more skills. So we feel more important, and we feel like it's better if we just solve our kids' problems. But we're really not. We're taking away their ability to be independent. Obeying your child's preferences, it doesn't mean just giving up. It just means It just means if your child isn't in the exact spot to have a conversation at that moment, it's okay to defer it unless it's an emergency. There are times where you're tired or you're not in the right mood to have a conversation with your partner or a friend or something like that, and you want to be respected. So does your child, especially your adult child. And then be firm and consistent. Doesn't mean that just because you're understanding that you're a wet rag that could be, that can be taken advantage of. If you give them the choice of having a conversation about something, about getting a job, about paying rent, or about doing a task that they've been asked, and you tell them, if you're not up to doing it now, I'd like you to get it done by tomorrow. I want your confirmation that it's going to be done by tomorrow, and you hold steady to that. So those are the two control and understanding things. And the way it's best presented is what we call an information sandwich. So this looks like a pretty good sandwich. I wish I had a sandwich as good as that for lunch today. But the information sandwich is asking permission, which is what we talked about earlier. Do you want me to be an ear, or do you want me to or give advice, or just saying, is it okay that we talk about this now? Asking permission is showing respect and inviting them in. And then the meat, which is in the middle, is providing whatever information you want to provide. And then you go back and confirm and summarize to make sure everybody understands everything. That third part is really important because people are distracted. People have a lot going on. People don't communicate clearly sometimes. And to really confirm exactly what you talked about so that everybody's aligned helps prevent further confusion downstream. So it's asking permission, providing that information that you want to provide, and checking back and clarifying. Another one is being curious. So when you're curious, again, you're present and you're focusing on the other person. And so you're avoiding those distractions like the phone, the news, eating while you're talking, anything else. Second thing is asking follow-up questions. There are a lot of questions where you get a yes or no answer, or you get a short answer and you kind of get on to the next thing. You really want to be able to ask follow-up questions so that you can dig in and understand. And the reason you want to ask the follow-up questions is not just to show interest, but actually to uncover some things, to learn more about your child. And then listening intently is about really focusing on your child. And it's different than focusing on the other person. Listening intently means just listening. Some people, and myself included at times, is when somebody's talking, I'm thinking about the answer I'm going to give when they're talking. And because I want to look smart, or because I want to solve a problem. But at the end of the day, I just should want to hear what they're saying, give it space, and you don't always have to fill up the space with talk. Some silence actually creates some safety and actually creates some opportunity for discussion. And then this is the third and most important part about balancing support and autonomy, is chunking it down. It's well known in the coaching world, in the therapy world, and it's called chunking it down. That's what we call it. And the reason is because if a child has mental illness or substance problems, or just is high functioning and doesn't have those problems but has other things, there are a lot of things that can become overwhelming. And so if you're able to take small steps and break it down into initial steps, it's a lot easier for them to understand and manage. And then when they get going, if you celebrate those milestones and don't put a strict timeline in it, it doesn't seem as intimidating to people. So we're actually going to do a little role play to show you about that, relating to an adult child who needs to get a job. But the idea you'll see is how do we chunk that down so they can take that first step, because getting a job is a pretty intimidating thing. And then the last thing is this technique that we'll show you called OARS. And it's really a technique about, it's an acronym. It's about asking open-ended questions that can't be answered with a yes or no, having affirmations, making the person feel safer, reflecting and summarizing. And the idea is to encourage productive conversations, and provide for a good framework. So when you ask an open-ended question, again, I experienced so much of the, how was your day, when you pick up your kid at school or you pick up your kid from work and you get good or not so good, and then the conversation ends, as opposed to, can I ask you, tell me something about your day, right? And then affirmations are something like, it seems like you put forth a lot of effort, making them feel safe. Reflecting is repeating back what you heard to make sure that there's clarity, and then the summarizing we talked about once again. So this will be fun. Casey and I are going to play adult, child, and parent. I gave Casey the option of wanting to be the parent or the adult child. I could be either one, and she elected to be the adult child. So we're going to kind of play out some of this balancing support and autonomy in terms of some of the things that I just presented, to show you what it looks like for real. And you can hopefully see what it's, what it's looked like in your life when you've had some of these similar conversations, and what may be the same in your world and what may be different. And hopefully at the end of this conversation, we'll kind of summarize and reflect on some of the key points that we wanted to infer. So, hey, Casey.
Hi, Dad.
I saw earlier today, Casey, you were on the computer doing some job searching. You mind if we talk about it a little bit? I'm here to support you in whatever you want to do.
Okay. I'm a bit overwhelmed. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do. And when I apply, it seems like I'm competing against hundreds of other people.
Casey, I can see in your face, you feel a little overwhelmed. I got to tell you, job searching isn't easy for anybody, but I'm really glad to see you've taken some initial steps. That's great.
Thanks.
May I ask you what types of jobs you've been applying for?
Digital marketing assistant or associate sounds good. So kind of something entry level.
Okay, that's cool. I know you like social media, which is great. Do you have a certain industry or type of business you can help in mind? Where would you do that social media work?
Not really. I'm just applying wherever there's a post on it.
I see. Do you mind if I make a suggestion then?
I'm open to it.
Okay, well, you seem to like swimming, and you've been on many swim teams. I'm wondering, do you think the sports and recreation industry may value someone with your swimming background?
Hmm. You know,
Yes? Okay. That's great. Don't you know that young lady Jill pretty well? She's the one who runs the swim academy locally where you swim.
First off, Dad, she's not young, but okay. She's pretty
Okay.
chill though. She's pretty chill though. I'll give her that.
Okay. How would you feel about asking her how they use social media to promote themselves?
I mean, I can, but I wouldn't be sure what to ask.
Well, if you want, I can help you with that. It's up to you.
Hmm. Okay, that'd be helpful. Well, then what do I do?
So I think when you apply to places, you can focus more on the sports recreation industry, maybe. And in your cover notes, show how you know how they can best market themselves. This can help you stand out a little bit more as opposed to what you've been doing, maybe, which has been applying generally everywhere. What do you think?
It makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I like that idea of being more focused, and it's something that I like. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
Great. So if I can summarize, you're going to contact Jill to see if you can meet with her. And then we'll come up with some questions. And then you'll need to meet with Jill. And then you'll apply to jobs in a more focused manner. Does that sound reasonable? Did I get that right?
Yeah, I feel you really heard me, and I appreciate you taking the time to kind of notice that I was struggling on this. So thanks for chatting with me about it.
Okay. So that's not going to get any Emmy awards, but that was our role play. And I hope it was helpful to you. I wanted you to notice a couple things. One is I asked for permission to chat at the beginning. So you can force a conversation on your kids, but it's usually far less productive. That's on anybody, much less your adult children. Then when Casey said she was overwhelmed, I both affirmed her feelings and reflected them back to her. So I showed I was listening and understood her feelings. And then we chunked it down to make it more manageable. She only had to contact Jill as a first step. And finally, I summarized our discussions to make sure everything was clear on both ends. And we used all the tools here. We used ORS, we used the information sandwich, being curious, and chunking it down. So hopefully that was helpful. And that covers our first topic. Now we're going to go on to social justice, and I'm going to turn it back over to Casey.
All right. So go ahead to the next page. And I will try to when Andy has another breakdown, I'll try to communicate back with you guys. I do like to really communicate in the chat, but you're also going to have lots of time to ask us questions towards the end. Um, so social justice factor, and talking about these 5 things right here in how we may have bias in our lives. So we're gonna do another poll after this. So just wanted to describe all 5 of the parts so that you can pick things that may be influencing you and maybe resonate with you. So first one, parental history. So an example, a parent was raised in a strict household where appearances mattered greatly. So as a result, they insist their child keeps a short haircut. Lots of kids have long hair these days, so that might hinder their success. Parental beliefs is an example that a parent holds on to beliefs from their own upbringing. So kind of what I just shared above, such as the idea that children should be seen and not heard. I don't know where that came from. And this outdated belief can stifle a child's voice and self-expression. So then the next one is parental needs. A parent feels that by doing everything for their child, they're being helpful. Um, totally was me. However, this over involvement can prevent the child from developing independence and problem solving. So just kind of understanding, what is the real reason you're doing things? Is there a need behind it versus um, a like true helpfulness. Parental comparison. Done this one. Parent constantly compares their child to their siblings or other children, or even to themselves at a younger age. Been there, done that. When I was your age at 18, this creates pressure and feelings of inadequacy in the child. Okay, then parental alignment. So a parent struggles with aligning their parenting styles with their partners. And I know that this was in the chat earlier, and it can lead into inconsistency and confusion for the
Oh,
child.
Daniel, it's raining outside now. So
Okay. This can create a bias where one parent's methods are seen as superior, kind of what Andy referred to before with authoritative, permissive, and uninvolved. And just as a side note, just because we have these boxes here, Andy and I truly do not feel that one size fits all. So don't feel that we're looking for you to be in a box. If you don't fit in a box, you don't have to be in a box. So go ahead and let's put up the poll, and you can scan the QR code and go ahead and hopefully start giving us some ideas there of what are those things. You could check as many boxes as you want. As many of those, yes, I have all these things. I would say I have all those things. So for me, it's definitely all, but my history with my child, all that stuff. Awesome. Yeah, I see parent history. Yeah, parent alignment, parent beliefs. The comparison one is so hard, not just with our children, but comparing our children to our other children. Um, uh,
Casey, it's only
oh,
letting us choose one thing.
oh, really? Oh, shoot. Okay. We had hoped that it didn't. So, is there a way around that, Lachelle, or we'll just keep it as it is for now?
Why don't we put, if you could only choose one thing, why don't you
Yeah.
put the second thing in the chat? And
There you go. Love that.
Yeah, that's not a quick.
self-disclosure,
That's a
my
great idea.
my second one is parent comparison. I'm pretty bad at that and I try not to.
Thank you, Gail. I would say for me, parent history, and then parent comparison, yeah, is my second for sure. Where my husband and I are better at alignment, but for a long time that was a big piece too. And what I have noticed is that as we've gotten stronger and I got more comfortable in changing who I was, it doesn't matter as much. The child actually starts to turn to the person who's doing more of the work. And that's interesting to me. Oh, thank you guys. Oh, thank you. Keep going. I love it. I'm so impressed how many people are here today. Thank you so much for being here and joining Andy and I. Okay, so I can see that where parent history and parent beliefs definitely are high on the list. So our childhood, our intergenerational stuff, yeah, it's really a big effect for sure. Thank you very much. All right. Well, you guys, we'll go ahead to the next one while you guys are
Okay.
on to there. Okay. Oh yeah. So we
Let
should
me
be
share
on.
again.
Yeah.
And get to the right spot.
Great. Okay. So opportunities for personal growth. These have been very, very important to me. Self-awareness, number one. Bias awareness, which we just talked about just a second ago, and educational resources. So by becoming more self-aware, we as parents can better understand and manage our reactions and our behaviors. And this can lead to more effective and empathetic communication, which can be very crucial for the emotional well-being of your adult child, which is interesting, right? As we're able to just be there, like Andy said, and listen and hear them, it really helps them feel understood and supported, and they develop more healthy coping mechanisms and self-regulation skills. Now, sometimes they're not living at home, so it is easier to practice these things, and it can be harder when they're home. So I'll just reflect on that I totally get that. And uh, the bias awareness, a parent who recognizes and embraces their own growth opportunities. We get to model resilience and yeah, we're good. You guys all know, for their children. So I think really interesting that what I have noticed is for myself with my children, that the more I am changing and getting more resilient, and the better, first off, I'm able to step out and allow them to grow and be more independent and problem solve on their own, because they're also realizing I'm not going to answer everything, if that makes sense. And education has been key for me by attending webinars like this, reading books, listening to podcasts. I've grown and learned, and as the children grow, my children's needs change. So I have to adapt. I have to be more supportive and empathetic and create a nurturing environment that allows them and respects their autonomy. So I was just reflecting on each of these, kind of a little bit of my story, that uh, when my child, I told you my third child is part of the LGBTQ community, for example, and requested to use they, them pronouns, I initially felt super uncomfortable. My bias was rooted in the belief that they, them was only plural. And then through education, I learned that historically they, them was actually singular until the 1940s. And I thought that was interesting. So that it just, by becoming more self-aware and educating myself on the they them pronouns, I was able to support my child's identity, and they felt more respected, and I actually kind of spilled over into other communities that I was around, so that was interesting. Another thing I'm reflecting in this part is admitting that my parenting approach needed to change was really a tough pill to swallow. I'm just going to say that honestly. It's been powerful to take moments to reflect on my reactions and the way I communicate. So my child that I told you had substance use, let's use that one. So I had a bias thinking that he was lazy or he was failing at everything, and that failure to launch, and understanding that his struggle is similar. Okay. I'm fully disclosing my addiction is Coke Zero. I love Coke Zero and I drink Coke Zero all the time. I will have like 4 cans a day. So, recognizing that my bias is towards my child's substance use and giving them myself empathy over that I couldn't quit Coke Zero, I was able to give him more empathy versus judgment over him struggling with figuring out substances. And I was able to show them and my child that they can seek support and help for their own struggles, not me do it. So then the last one, by giving my child space to make their own decisions and from learning from them, I actually noticed that all three of them have become much more responsible and independent. And I don't parent them the same when they were younger. And I had to learn to offer support, especially for my child with substance use issues, without being overbearing. And I learned this really great image. It's akin to someone asking me, for me asking him to give up substances like that is something I love deeply, like my cat. Like it would be telling me to take my cat, put it outside, put it on the out in the yard in the snow and walk away and just like close the door and never look back. So that's incredibly hard image for me. And that's what I learned and gained more compassion and understanding for my child. So if you want to go to the next page, yeah. So understanding the adult child syndrome, when parents fail to address their own biases and remain stuck in old parenting patterns, their child may get stuck in the adult child syndrome. And this term describes adult children who exhibit dependency, low self-esteem, difficulty managing their lives due to overbearing or misguided parental control. So the one woman in here in the chat earlier, she talked about, she has a child who had cancer at a very young age and still has health issues that are appearing as he goes on. But we kind of start talking about that, of how you can find those small wins and those small things to give that independence for even someone like that they feel that can be more successful. So I appreciate that was shared. Okay, next one. So we've discussed a lot of stuff today, and it can hinder your child's ability to thrive. Some of our stuff, and their stuff, and intergenerational stuff, etc., can all manifest in their lives with like a failure to launch, sometimes struggling to move out, live independently, job instability, difficulty in securing or maintaining employment, social isolation, challenges in making and sustaining friendships, and unhappiness. This inability to find joy and satisfaction in life. And when we see our kids do that, it's see these things, we hurt for them. And finding our way to continue to walk alongside them and buoy ourselves up gives them strength to walk tall, and if we can walk next to them versus pushing or pulling them. So next slide. And I want you to know, did you hear me? Next slide. Okay. That everything we're sharing is not about shame or blame. I thought for myself that this was, when I started learning about this, it's more about supporting your child effectively as they are adults, letting them find their own way, allowing your child to explore and learn from their experiences without casting judgment, avoiding prescriptive advice, rather like our example that Andy and I did together, our role play, rather than telling them what they need to do, be there to support them as they navigate their path, and accept imperfection. Understand they make choices that you so much do not agree with and that aren't ideal. This is part of their learning process and helps them become their own person. And this is the Andy loves the song Let It Be, so you can see him walking down the steps of letting your child be along this whole path of figuring themselves out. Go ahead, Andy. Thank you. And another great Andyism is bumping up against the world. So I really like this when he explained about allowing our children to bump up against the world is so hard. I mean, when I created OPLM, I didn't know if it would succeed without hearing feedback. So some people said, hey, that's a great idea, I'm willing to support it. And others said, if everyone had said that's really stupid, I'd never partake, I would have to retool it. I'd have to get feedback. So I'm just thinking of my own son. My son who's the one in the middle, the substance use one, he moved to Austin recently, Austin, Texas. Anybody from Austin? I think I saw a few people. And with just a bike and a moving truck, no job lined up. And he was like, wow, it took longer to get a job. So he's experiencing bumps. And over the last 3 years, we've really worked on our relationship. We've used the ORs and the information sandwich and the just listing and all the things that Andy shared earlier, to become someone he can turn to when he encounters those bumps. And we hold space for him now without trying to fix things. And it's amazing watching him gain resilience. All right, go ahead, Andy. Or take it over.
So the last and shortest of the three is this acceptance factor, and it's just a couple slides, and then we have plenty of time for Q&A. So I hope you'll stick with us. But this acceptance factor is really about allowing things in the world and your children to kind of be there, to allow them to be, and to allow your child to grow with your support, as opposed to you being directive. And if you can accept things, your life will be easier and your child's life will be easier. And so what does that mean? That means definitionally, it's your understanding a situation without attempting to change or protest it. You know, you wanted your kid to do a certain job because you thought that that was the best job for them, and they have talents in that area, and it makes a lot of sense. But they have apprehension about it for some reason or other. That's not what they want to do. They could make other choices, but you should not want to change it because it's just going to escalate and create more resistance. Acceptance is a neutral thing. It just means that you're acknowledging it, and you're understanding that other people have their own opinions, emotions, and principles without criticizing or trying to change them. It's more than just tolerating others. And acceptance is acting to improve your own situation rather than trying to change others. And we talked about parent history in our last poll. That's a big thing that I see quite a lot. I see parents where one parent grew up in a stricter household and wants to be more strict, and the other one was in a more permissive household and wants to be more understanding, and the two parents can't get aligned, and the child has been confused from day one. And so you have to be able to accept that parenting today has a lot in common with parenting a generation ago, but some things have changed. And if you have a partner that you're parenting with, you have to adapt to their style, and you have to understand your kid. It's not just your the way that you were raised. So we have one last quiz here, or challenge, and then we're gonna wrap up under acceptance factors in terms of some of the things you can do to improve your acceptance. And so one of the things that's important about accepting is making sure that you take care of yourself. So we're looking for what is it that you do to help yourself be more accepting and help yourself in general.
Just type in a whole bunch of words,
Yeah, type in the words and they'll pop up.
and they're just going to pop up and create this beautiful image. So just keep throwing them in there. Music. I love music. Ah, walking away, working away, exercise. Yeah, so,
Kind of fun.
yeah, watching TV, taking breaths, tennis, crying. Yes, sometimes putting on a like a oh, it's not a movie that will got a romantic drama. Give you space for that, so you can go and cry or put on a real drama. Meditate. Oh, brunch, kayaking, podcast. For me, podcasts, my simple pleasure is I call them the boys, and that's Smartless. I love Smartless. My simple pleasure, Golden Girls. Oh my gosh, jigsaw puzzles, blowing bubbles, yoga, fun with friends. Oh, thank you guys. So you see the words that are getting larger are the ones that more and more people have repeated
Yeah.
in here. That's cool. Excellent. All right. Thank you guys.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that. There's nothing that's bad when it comes to all this self-care things. Being outdoors is one that I emphasize quite a bit. It's important to continue to do those things.
So I think we're
Okay,
going right
so
to, are we going right to Q&A? Or are we going to do the last one?
we're
We are.
we're just going to finish up real quick.
You got it.
And I wanted to show what can parents do to improve their own situations other than just do some of this self-care. And some of it is changing your mindset or investing in yourself. So we just talked about the self-care with investing in yourself, but changing your mindset is embracing social factors. So that means understanding that 2024 is not the same as when we grow up in 1984 or 1994 or whenever we were young adult children or teens. And it's understanding that certain things and the way our younger generation is experiencing information and competitiveness and adversity and opportunity is a little different than what we've experienced it. And you got to change your mindset around that and put yourself in their shoes. Understand triggers. It's what sets you off when you're for me, sometimes I get impatient because I'm kind of a perfectionist and I like to get things done. And so when people aren't getting things done, I'm not as patient a person, but that triggers me and I'm aware of it. So I do things to avoid that. And don't expect perfection of yourself. All you can do is do your best. And you guys have all done your best and you're doing great by just showing up today. So changing those things are important. To provide more acceptance, do self-care, invest in the community, in a community like OPLM, this community that you're in today, communities locally that you're involved in with your kids or with your friends. Continue to educate yourself. Those are things that I offer at Parents Journey Coaching, as well as practice to make sure that you, for those who need extra support, can both learn additional approaches and practice it and make adjustments so that they stick. And then a lot of people are like, okay, this was a lot of great information. Where the heck do I start? You know, because there's just so much there. And the idea is you can make a list of all the things that you've done wrong or all the things that you've done well, all the things your kid has done wrong, all the things you want to correct. Prioritize it. Pick your battles, pick your fights, decide what's most important. If it's the job, if it's the behavior, if it's the financial, if it's just communication, whatever it is. Don't be afraid. A lot of people are afraid to have those tough conversations if they're held in the right way, kind of in the way that Casey and I tried to role play. You'll find that you're more successful. And it doesn't always work the first time. You have to be consistent and try it again. Be patient, realizing it's a journey. That's why I called it Parents Journey. And it's, you know, something that doesn't happen overnight. It happens with time, changing of habits and all the rest. Again, recognizing it's a journey. Sometimes you take 2 steps forward and 1 back, and sometimes 1 step forward and 2 steps back. That's just the way life is. And then take those first steps. And when you get some success, build on it. So hopefully that's helpful. We thank you for listening.
That was fabulous. So thank you very, very much. And as the slide says, it's time to put your mics, take your mics off mute. It's open mic time and we can ask questions. We can take down the slides and just sit here for a few minutes. I've got a lot of questions. So, if you're ready to answer, I've got a list, and I also want to welcome everybody here. If you have an answer or a suggestion, take your mic off and add to it, because as someone said, we're parent peers. We all don't know the answers, and some of us may know answers that others don't, and vice versa. So the first question is, could you address how to deal with an adult child who also has an intellectual disability? How do I make that person be stronger and more independent?
Want me to grab that one, or Casey, would you?
Go for it. Go ahead,
Okay.
Andy.
Okay. Well, someone within, everything has to be specific to that person's capability. So if, the key thing is that that child of yours doesn't feel like they're fully disadvantaged, or or that they don't have an opportunity to be successful or independent or happy. I have a childhood friend who is blind, and his parents didn't change anything in his world, even though he was blind, and he became the first blind person to scale Mount Everest. So nothing is impossible. And I think you just have to be a little bit more patient and be able to implement things at their level, and maybe chunk it down a little bit more in order to get them to align more. as best you can. You just got to take it, you have to address it. There's some adult children who, have more addictions and more addictive personalities, or more depressing, or slower mentally, or whatever it is. They have some kind of issue that they're trying to deal with, and you just have to approach it open-minded, recognizing that they're capable, and do it in a way that they feel comfortable. Like if I'm presenting and I'm talking too fast, I'm going to lose everybody, right? If you're not talking in I'm sure you've developed a language to talk to your child so that to meet their needs. So you just have to kind of build on that.
And I can jump in. Every suggestion you made today can be used for parents who have adult children, intellectual disabilities, or substance use, or mental health issues. I think they're all key suggestions. The real key, Andy, and this is what you said, was that a parent knows their child. So based on your knowledge, to use the tools we talked about today at the level that your child, or your relationship with that child, that adult child, has. That's the skill.
Yep.
I've got tons of questions here.
Go for it. Go for it.
What about we have a young child, an adult child who lost a lot of their early years, their young teen years, from age 14 to 18 because they were hospitalized. They are now 22 and pretty stable. They have their issues from time to time. But how do you let go and give that child, who could at any moment spiral downwards, how do you give that person an independence as a parent?
So, I would love to understand a little bit more of what they were doing from 14 to 18, if the person was willing to share what their hospitalization was surrounding, if they're willing.
I believe it was self-harm, but if the
Okay.
person's here
Okay.
and they want to jump in.
If not, it's okay. Self-harm, I can totally. I have that one. I've got that one in my family. So, um, uh, it's during that time frame, all three of my children really had big, significant struggles from 14 to 18, and they're in a different place now that they're young adults. So, and it's very easy to focus and be uh, have PTSD as parents, that we're going to go back there, that that's going to happen again, that this is going to be the rest of our lives. And it's hard to look through the lens of that it's changed, that we are in a different place, even if they go back to self-harm. Yeah, PTSD is so real. Even if they go back to self-harm, you are in a different place. You have learned differently. Your child has a lot of tools that they have learned, and trusting that part of them in what they learned while they were in hospitalization, what you guys learned. Hopefully you were doing family work together during that. I hope as that happened. And you can continue to move forward. And if you continue to stay and listen to Annie Blatt, talk about the information sandwich, and you continue to stay open and curious with them, so that they know that you're available and not going to, as my oldest would say, throw me back in, because that's what she would not want to do. She doesn't want to go back to treatment. So she has to rebuild the trust as well with me, that I'm not going to be my first solution is you're going to go to residential treatment. And so that is a two-way street on that. And hopefully my hope is, and what we're working on with my oldest, is that if they go back to treatment, it's her decision, because she needs more than I can give.
About what happens when your 28-year-old has OCD and struggles with making any decisions and is a failure to launch?
Gonna hand that one to you, Andy.
Yeah, I would flip the question and actually say, why is that the case? Right? It's the case of the child not being able to make any decisions may have been because he struggled with making, it's hard for me to know, but when I see parents whose children have had trouble making decisions, it's often because potentially that they've had decisions made for them. So they, at a younger age, they didn't have the opportunity to make those decisions or didn't have the confidence. And so it's never too late to kind of empower your child and figure out and talk to them about giving them choices. If they can't make a decision on certain things, you give them choices, you give them timelines, you give them the opportunity again to experience the consequence of it, and you can make it something really simple to start. If it's a big decision, it may be too hard for them. Maybe they need to make a simple decision, get affirmed that they've made the effort and that it's great that they made a decision, whether it was a good or bad one, and then you build from there. So it's never too late, but and I'm sorry that, you know, your child is struggling in that area, but it's never too late to try and support him or her and try and change that.
I think we're about out of time for any more questions, but I have a list of questions. I am going to send them to you, Andy and Casey, in an email. And if you can answer them and get them back to Lachelle, when we send out the follow-up email with all the resources and the slides, we'll answer some of the other questions here. So I appreciate all this time. I hope it was, for me at least, this was an informative and helpful event. I want to thank Casey and Andy again for today and thank everyone for your participation. As always, a special thanks to Dr. Linda Goggin, NASDAQ Principal Investigator, and to Lachelle for helping us run today's event smoothly. I wish everyone a pleasant summer. NASDAQ will be off over the summer so we can plan the new year. And in the surveys that you're going to be taken to, if you have some ideas or thoughts on events or topics you want, please add it in the survey where they say any suggestions. So I wish everyone a pleasant summer. NASDAQ will be away and we'll see you again in the fall. I hope you attend our national conference in November. We'll be in Orlando. And as always, this webinar will return in September, and it's always the third Wednesday of the month from 2 to 3:30. As you exit this webinar, you will be taken to a survey. When you finish that survey, you'll be taken to your attendance certificate. If you have any problems, just text us or email us and we'll try to help you, walk you through it. But again, if you see this QR code, it takes you right to the survey. Or if as you exit, it'll be taking you to the survey. It's so much easier to do it now when the Zoom is still up than to backtrack and use the link. So if you could all exit on your own, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Casey,
guys.
Andy, you were fabulous. You don't have to stay. I'll keep the Zoom up a little bit so everybody can exit in their own. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You will get a copy of this presentation and it'll be in a follow-up email. Also, it will be posted on the NASDAQ website. I'm leaving the Zoom up for just a couple of minutes so you can exit on your own. That way you can do the survey easier, and we appreciate you filling out that survey. And then you'll be taken to the certificate of attendance.